So I initially was going to do this video as one big long video, but it ended up being so long with all the electrical wiring because I'd done a ton of electrical wiring and the distributor that I ended up splitting it in two parts. So I made the first part where you could just watch the gauges. It's coming up next, so check it out. Then we'll have another one with just the distributor and the shocks and everything else. Alright guys, so what I'm doing here, these are the gauges that's going in the 72. So I'm going to go ahead, while I'm in here in the kitchen, waiting, just pre-wire everything up, make it nice and neat, solder everything together, and have it ready to go in the car. And I've got this red wire I'm going to use for illumination. I might use it for, it's awful long. I think we can use this for, we'll use this for a switch source. It'll be better. We'll use this blue wire for illumination because it's only got to go, well, let's see. I've got more red wire. We'll just use the red wire for illumination. So I'll just label it to what it is when I get to that. So I'm going to strip all these. These have the smallest wire I've ever seen on them. And I'm just going to tie them all three together. And tie them to this red wire, and that will have my illumination. Nice and neat. And now for the ground, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Let's see. How do these work for this? Probably a little bit too small. Yeah, it is. So this one. So we're going to tie all three of these together. And then I'm going to solder everything together. Twist all these together. And then I'm going to twist this wire like this. Backwards from the others and twist them all in a nice neat little ball like that. Here, back I got the solder here. Solder, how you pronounce it, I don't know. Solder, I'm a hybrid, so Eastern Kentucky special here. A little bit more on that side just to make sure it's below my tip. There we go. So that's done. It looks pretty good. Now, take the heat gun, so I get in without burning my arm off. You can use a torch torch a lighter for solder, but I really like to do a heat gun. And a little tip, you heat shrink, roll it backwards from the way your wires are twisted. And that's what you get from somebody that's put in probably 4,000 car stereos and all that good stuff. A nice soldered end. Looks really nice and neat. So now with the grounds, I gotta do something a little different. I have to ground each signal and the lights. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna do is take a piece of wire and one of these crimps ring terminals. One of these ring terminals, like so. Twist these together, maybe even put a little solder on them, and then put a ring terminal on them. So, like so. And yeah, I think I will put just a dab of solder on them. Just enough so they don't come loose. And then we'll take a ring terminal. Actually, what I'm going to do too to make it nice and neat, because this is how I am. I'm going to take, I believe these will fit over this. Yep, those will fit over that. So I'm actually going to cut it in half because I don't need all of it. So there's that. And I'm going to take this, like so. Then I'm going to trim this wire out when I get done, another piece of it. But so there's that. And I've got, these are ratcheted ones, which if you've ever used any of them, the ratcheted ones are the way to go. And that's why. And so probably need some pliers or something to take that loose, but anyway, that ring terminal will go in there. I think I've got some pliers laying in here, like so, and that will feed each ground. So I'm going to take another piece. I'm going to trim this wire about yay big, and then we'll put all three of these wires together when I'm done. So I've got a roll of, looks like 16 gauge, which are the blue ones, which is fine. So same process, we'll cut about this much off, like so. Strip one end, there we go. The difference is 16 gauge I have to use blue. So this is the old water sensor, factory one from the car. To get it out, I actually had to break it off with a hammer. It'd been in there so long a wrench wouldn't bring it out. Break break it off with a hammer on the top. You see it already had a piece in there just zip tied up because where it's already broke. And then I'd take an inch socket on a breaking bar and break it loose. That's how tight it was in there. But I've got it out. I'm not going to reuse it. I don't care about the idiot gauges. Some people do. Me, I don't. I mean, I've got a gauge. I don't need an idiot light too. So that's out. We'll just put this vacuum cap on the carb where this vacuum line ran in, and take it completely out, and then we'll wire up the gauges. Okay. So your water port is right there for the factory water port. I took the this is the one that deters pressure to the air filter. I'm not going to use that. So what I'm going to do is with that one, there's the one for the actual gauge. I didn't actually take it out. But what I'm going to do is I have to reduce it down for the sender that I've got. So I've got an adapter here. Put it in. It was like an 1/8 to a 1/2 inch. I'm going to put some pipe thread on it, tighten that up, put the sender in. Then I'm going to try to back the car in the garage where I can work on it. And there's that. And then here's the sender. And it's the same thing. Just put it in, put a little of the thread sealant on the tape, or thread sealant on the threads, I'm sorry. And then the wire goes to this. How these work, they're just basically a resistance ground. And they send a resistance to the gauge to tell you how hot your engine is. So we're gonna go ahead and knock this out, and this part will be done, and we won't have no water leak to get the car moved around here where we need to. All right, so that's in there, and that's done. Sorry about the lawnmower, I can't help it. But that's ready to go. All we gotta do is wire it and put it in the car. All right, I'm back out here wiring everything. Actually was able to trade with the guy that wanted to put his smog pump back and needed this piece for this. So I went ahead and did that while I was in here too. It'll be shipped back to him. However, I'm out here going to do the wiring now for this. Cool thing is where they had this, they had like a aftermarket horn set up in here that was cable driven. They'd already had a grommet right there. So all I gotta do is run my wires through there. So that saves me a lot of work trying to trace and hunt wires and so forth. I am doing them all one color. I'm just going to mark them. I don't have any other color wire, and I got it at Walmart and all they had was red and black, so it'll work once I mark it. It's no big deal. I would like to have it more than one color, but it is what it is. So we'll go ahead, run this wire for the temp sensor into the car, and then we'll run, we need to run 3 more to get everything wired. So we'll go ahead and get this one first, get it marked what it is, and then start with the other 2. And when you're marking your tape for your car, make sure you're only using the finest writing utensil, the Ritz-Carlton. And that's got that all wired into the car. Now all we gotta do is wire it into the gauges. Like I said, I've got one more for the temp sensor, and I'm gonna go ahead and run wires for the TAC and the HEI distributor and the lights out here. I don't know if I'll get them all hooked up today, especially the distributor. However, I'm gonna have the wire already in the car and just tied up and ready to go for when I do get to it and marked. Alright, another cool thing I've got is this little fuse panel here, marine fuse panel. Uses regular old blade fuses. My plan with that is to run a wire over from the main fuse box and tie it into this one. I just got to figure out where I want to mount this in the car, and then I can put a ring for the gauges, a ring for another switch source or something I might need, and so forth. Like for example, we're going to do power windows later on. We'll switch that. We'll put a switch source there. Anything else we need that works with the key. Alright, so I've got the it's kind of dim in here, but I got the panel in. I hold the 3 gauges. Now I know it's right above the gas pedal, but this car is so big I got plenty of room.
I'm not going to touch those. So that should be good. I wanted to put it under here, but when I raise this out, it's going to hit, and there's a dip right here. So there was really no way to put them there. I didn't want to drill any holes inside the dash. There was already a hole here for where that little CB thing was. So that was the best option I had. I think it looks alright though. Probably in fall these might actually end up coming out, because one of the mods we have will eliminate a lot of this stuff. Alright guys, I've got this big wired mess down here, but I'm getting ready to zip tie all that up, and this mess. But this will actually feed the tachometer and the switch. I do got to get another roll of red wire unless I want to do black to stuff under the hood, and I don't want to do that. So I'll get a roll of wire tomorrow. However, all these gauges are ready to turn on, and so we'll go ahead and get those in, zip tie up all these wires, double side tape down that fuse connector. You can see I've already got the lights working, so it's going to be pretty cool. Even though I don't have the signal wire hooked up for the tack and this because I'm out of wire, I do have the lights hooked up, so it does look really, really cool. I'll put the panel back on just to show y'all how it looks, but so far it looks really awesome. So we'll get them all bolted up, and that's calling these done, except for running these 2 wires to these signals. So alright, so initially I said I was going to just double side tape this. I actually tried it. It just wasn't strong enough to hold it. The molding tape wasn't where I was wanting to mount it. So I scrambled a little bit and tried to figure out another way to do it, and I think I've got a better way to do it. I've got that piece of sheet metal that I made the tack mount out of. I think what I'm going to do is just cut 2 little strips of that, run it over to the 2 little strips right here, and this bolts in, and I'm going to run it over to where there's the factory fuse block has 2 bolts. I can just loosen those bolts up and slide this under it, tighten it up, and just have a piece of metal that goes across holding both of them in like unison, I guess would be the word I would use. And then it'll be really securely mounted with bolts. Okay, so this is what I came up with. It's just a little piece of metal with 3 holes drilled in it, and this piece of foam was just here to keep from grounding out. So put the bolts through, and this bolt will go where the fuse box is. There's a bolt that holds it in, and I can just tie into that bolt and tighten it up, and this will be mounted in the car right next to the fuse panel, which is the perfect place for it. Okay, so there's the finished product with the cap on. I do have 2 wires I got to zip tie up, but I've got 2 more to run. But that looks really good, and let's test everything, see what she does. And all the gauges are working. Voltmeter here. The oil cylinder is topped out because it's not got nothing hooked to it. Temp sensor's doing nothing because the car's not on. But, and neither is the tack because I don't have it hooked to the distributor. But everything is working. The most important one that I've been trying to get is the temp. So I was going to just hook the tack up temporarily with the ring terminal and run the point system for now, and then swap to HEI here later. But it looks like I'm going to have to go ahead and swap in that new distributor, because this coil is junk. When I loosen up the bolt, it will not tighten back up. So it's apparently broke off in the head of the coil. So I guess we'll go ahead and knock that out. I've got a test lead here on it just to make sure the tack's going to work right. So we'll check that first. Okay, so the tech's working really good. The only issue is that coil. The lead just broke off in my hand, so I've got those test wires on it right now just to make it start and work. I'm gonna go ahead and switch out, just go ahead and get the HEI swapped in it. I've got it sitting over here in the box, might as well finish it out. And I like, when I change oil, I'm gonna put the oil sensor in. And I run these light wires for these lights, and all the wiring under the hood for now is done. And then we're going to change shocks, and I got a surprise for y'all sitting over here in the corner. If you watch social media, you know what I'm talking about. But we'll have that all, should be done by tomorrow,